Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this free webinar session presented by Cosmos. Now, today's topic is the future of reporting and analytics in Business Central. We estimate that today's webinar will take up about half an hour of your time, including some time at the end for a Q&A. The webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand after the live session. All attendees will receive a follow-up email after this webinar is complete with a link to access the presentation. With that being said, I'd like everyone to submit questions through the question panel during the session, and we're going to try and answer as many questions as possible at the end. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you all to Anthony Bonaducci, one of the founders of Cosmos.
Thanks, Robbie. I appreciate the introduction. And again, thank you all for your time today. I know it's valuable, so thanks for carving out the next 30 minutes with us. Hopefully you get a lot of value out of the presentation. I think this should be an exciting session. As we know, reporting is a critical, business function for any company. And so we're excited to show you what the future looks like here for Business Central Cloud and reporting. So that's what we'll be covering today. As Robbie noted, we've got about the next 30 minutes blocked off. What I'm about to show, I typically block an hour for. Granted, there's usually some interaction and questions and things throughout. So we're going to go pretty fast. But again, thank you to everyone for the time. Thank you to the Sabre team for coordinating and Robbie for helping get this in front of folks. But without further ado, we're going to jump into today's presentation. So fear not, I am not a death by PowerPoint person. We're going to just spend a couple minutes in here, and then we're going to get into the product for the vast majority of this. As Robbie noted, feel free to type in questions throughout, and we'll get to those at the end. But today's presentation is the future of reporting and analytics for Business Central. And really what we'll be looking at today in detail is Cosmos. So Cosmos, simply put, is the first and only fully cloud-based reporting and analytics solution that is born in the cloud and built specifically for Business Central Cloud. So that's what we'll be taking a look at today and talking a little bit about. Now, for the sake of time, I'm going to skim through, like I said, most of the PowerPoint so we can get into product. But I will tell you this, my founding team and I have been doing nothing but reporting and analytics for Microsoft ERP users for about 60 years combined. So it's an absolute passion of ours. As we know, reporting is incredibly transformational for a business. And given those decades of experience, we focused on building a product for Business Central Cloud that was seamless, lightning fast, easy to use, secure, and again, fully cloud-based so that it's aligned with that cloud-first vision, that everyone's embracing as they move to the cloud. And so that's really where Cosmos came from. And just being candid, there's other reporting tools in the Microsoft space in a third-party capacity, but none of them were built for Business Central. They were all built for Nav or GP or other Microsoft ERPs. And the reality is in software, when you're purpose-built for something, things just work better. They're just seamless. A great example of this is a lot of those legacy tools, when used against Business Central, they're not designed to work in the cloud, and they're very, very slow. So compared to the historical options for reporting in the Microsoft space, Cosmos on average is 48 times faster. And yes, you're reading that correctly, 48 times. We have a lot of customers that used a different reporting tool. Their financial reports took an hour and a half. In Cosmos, they take 6 seconds, things like that. So substantially faster from a performance perspective. And then what we're going to cover today, like I said, at kind of lightning speed, is a few different components of the product and what it has to offer you as a user. So the first thing we'll look at is the Cosmos portal. This is where you'll go to do just about anything in the product. This is your home page for the product. You're going to go here to build reports, run reports, manage users, roles, permissions, create dashboards, schedule reports to run and distribute. All that kind of stuff is going to happen here in the portal. So we'll start out there. Then I'll show you a really quick and dirty, how do we build a report? What's that experience like? And so I'll throw together a report using the Cosmos report editor. So, if this is a product you decide to embrace and use internally, this is how you would go about creating reports. So we'll take a look at that. One important thing I'll mention here is that with Cosmos, your data is clean. It's ready to use. It's not in an ERP structure. It's in a reporting format. And that's really important because there's probably folks on this call who need to create reports out of Business Central, but might not know those tables and fields. I mean, there's 1,700-ish base tables, 53,000 fields. That can be very overwhelming as a business user. So we've removed the data complexity from the equation to make it much simpler. And again, that's just decades of experience understanding what people want. Now, another piece of the product we'll look at is the dashboards and analytics. And being that we're laminated with Microsoft and with Business Central, you can probably guess, but Power BI plays a big part in this. So we have a very symbiotic relationship with Power BI. Power BI is not a competitor to what we do. It's actually a value add. So, whereas Cosmos natively provides Excel-based reports, Power BI provides the data visualization front end, and we provide the ready-to-use data to Power BI. And the cool part is when you build your Power BI reports and dashboards, they'll actually show up in your Cosmos portal alongside your Excel reports. So you have kind of a one-stop shop, whether it's reporting or analytics, all in one product. And then finally, if we have some time at the end, I'll talk to you a little bit about kind of the what's under the hood with Cosmos. How do we take that data from Business Central, clean it, organize it, get it into that business user-friendly format? So that's kind of where we'll wrap up. But with that, we've got about 25 minutes left. I want to get into product here. So we're going to switch gears and we're going to pop over to my Cosmos portal. So this is where you would start your day logging into the solution. So we're going to log in. I think I'm cached already, but it uses your Microsoft credentials, your Azure Active Directory. I think they call it Entra ID now, but the same credentials you'd use for Business Central or Teams or any other Microsoft products. So again, it's very seamless. Now, when I log in, it's a little funny. I'm our main admin for my demo tenant, so it takes me to this admin page. Most users aren't going to be admins. And so when they log into Cosmos, they're going to come into this page here, which is going to be all their different reports that they have access to. And that's a key statement there. This is not a tool where there's some organization-wide free-for-all of reports that anyone can access. You have control over that. If you only want certain users in the business to see financials, you'll be able to make sure that that's the case. So when Robbie logs in here, maybe he only sees a subset of these reports. So we'll talk more about that. And on that note, in Cosmos, you're going to have a couple different user types. You're going to have what we call full users and light users. Think of your full users as people that are actually going to build stuff in the solution. Obviously, there's a bunch of other roles that can be assigned to them, but I like to just say these are your report builders. Your light users, these are people where Robbie built a report and all I need to do is be able to run it. So maybe I just need a light user license. And so those are the two different user types. This third user type would be if you wanted us at Cosmos or someone at Sabre to have access to your tenant in a secure manner to be able to get in and support you, help, build reports, whatever it is you need. And that's all very easy to manage because it's tied into Azure Active Directory. So adding a new user will just search your AAD and populate the user based on the one you select. So that's the user management side. Now, the meat of this today obviously is focused around reporting. And as I mentioned, I've got lots of different reports here in my demo environment. Now, one of the nice things, since we are purpose-built for Business Central, is that we have lots of pre-packaged content, including dozens of ready-to-use reports out of the box on day one. So you can see here in my tenant, I've got reports around sales, finance, inventory, AP, AR, purchasing. And so any of these reports will work for you in your Business Central Cloud data on day one. You can import them and they'll show up here in your reports section. Now, the nice thing, though, is that we recognize from years of doing this that every customer is different, every business is different. And so all of these templates are also customizable. So you might look at this AR detail and think, well, that's 90% of what I want, but I also want, the customer phone number so I can call on past due accounts, right? You can easily just insert a column, drop in phone number, and publish in your own version of this report. All the images can be updated if you want your logos and things like that. Now, the idea with a tool like this, though, is that it's self-serve reporting. So run these on demand, toggle your filters, and just get the output you need to do your job. So if I pick one of these reports like this, I don't know, income statement by company, I can hit the run button. Over here on the right, I can filter on different items. Now, the full user will choose what those items are. So maybe I give Robbie the ability to toggle dates, but it could be dates and departments and companies and locations and salespeople. Anything you want to filter on is available to you as long as you have that field, or I guess that item in Business Central. But in this case, we're going to run it for the month of June, and I'll enable drill down so you can see what that looks like in a report. So we'll hit that run button, and what that's going to do is go grab the data, populate my report, and in just a few seconds here, we'll get a little green means go to let us know that our report is ready to be viewed. So we can see here the report is done. This is actually a Microsoft step behind the scenes, and I can open this up, and I now have my nice clean income statement by company. Now, I recognize this is one of a million flavors of an income statement, but it gives you an idea of the types of reports, what things can look like. So you, of course, could have, monthly income statement. You could have companies across sheets broken out individually. You could have groupings of accounts rolled up to a single line. You could have a forecast, across the top, whatever it is you want. But this is one example. And so the nice thing is with these types of tools, you build this format once, you lay out your template, and moving forward, Cosmos will drop in the relevant accounts, drop in the names, the amounts, things like that. Over here on the right, since we're in Excel, the nice thing is we just get to leverage that friendly and familiar tool chest. So, we can see those are just subtotals. These are just sums, right? So you'll build that logic into your template, and then it will persist every time you run the report. Now, one of the things people really appreciate about Cosmos is the visibility that's available in a business user-friendly format. So I'd like to use an example here. Let's say that Robbie just built this report and he looks at it and he says, structure looks great, accounts look right, my sections in my income statement all look good. But you know what? This is the first time I've ran it and that number doesn't, pass the eye test. So Robbie might want to check what the report is doing, what he told it to do. And it's very easy to digest here. We can see that we're going to our GL transactions table and summing up our amounts. We've reversed the sign on our income accounts. And we can see at the bottom, we're filtered in this cell on account 44100 for our USA company for the month of June. So Robbie can safely assume that he built the report correctly. But now you got to wonder, is something going on in Business Central? What's going on with my data? And that's where you can drill into these values and you'll actually see the underlying transaction detail. So in just a second here, this is going to open up a new report and show all the transactional detail that makes up that $2.2 million number. And so you have visibility not just at the report level, but also in the underlying data. So while that's running real quick, I'm going to just show a couple other things here. So in the actual portal itself, I mentioned earlier that this is not a free-for-all. So you'll see there's a section here for security. So one of the things here is when Robbie builds a report, he'll choose which users are going to have access to that report. So you don't need to worry about, again, non-finance users seeing financial information that they shouldn't see. If Robbie doesn't share this report with me, when I log in, I just don't see it. It doesn't show up for me. So you do have that kind of security layer. You also have the ability to schedule reports. So if you want reports to run and distribute automatically, you can control that here. And one of the nice things is you can send finished reports in an automated fashion to non-licensed users. So a lot of times we'll have customers that need to submit a report to the bank once a month or something like that. Well, you can just automate all that here. So this is a great way to distribute, the sales update every week to the sales team or whatever it may be, or have your preliminary financials show up in your inbox at the end of the month. So you have scheduling, and then you also have built-in archiving. And you can think of this as like, I just ran this income statement. Maybe I need to run my financials a few times at month end, but once I'm ready to close the books, I want to archive that package. I want to keep all my financials. You can put in notes, whatever you want, a title, click archive, and your financial package or your sales commission report will just store here permanently in the product. You can come back to it, reference back anytime you need to. Now, like I said earlier, I drilled into this number, And you'll see Cosmos has actually created a report to show me all the records from Business Central, all the amounts, all the context around those. We enable filtering. So if I just want to look at my Canada company or my USA company, I can do that. I can pivot this data, do any sort of analysis I need to. But that way, again, you have that underlying transaction detail. So that's the idea, kind of running reports in Cosmos. We talked about scheduling, security, archiving. The next thing I'll take you through is how we build reports. So I'm just going to throw something kind of basic together just for time's sake. I'll do like a monthly sales by salesperson. If I check this box, it'll open an Excel desktop. If I leave it blank, it will open an Excel online. And one thing about Cosmos is that it is fully cross-platform. So it works in any flavor of Excel. Excel for Mac, Excel for Windows, desktop, online, etc. Smartphones, tablets, doesn't matter. So I've opened up my template here. And obviously, as I mentioned, we've only got about 15 minutes left. We're going to be going quick. Don't get hung up in the minutia on this. This isn't meant to be a training. And as I said, usually we block an hour, which we're always happy to do with anyone as a follow-up. But on our website here at the top, I like to point out that all of our training and our knowledge base are free on demand. You could go look at that right now. It's not gated. So this is our entire training library. This is what we provide to customers, and it's very comprehensive. In addition to that, you have access to our knowledge base, which has over 300 articles. Every single article has a video as well as step-by-step walkthroughs. So depending on how you like to learn, you're not going to have any shortage of training or ability to self-serve in the product. Now, next thing I'm going to do is just kind of format my template. So I'm going to call this my monthly sales by salesperson. Whoops, if I could type today. And I'm going to go ahead and put in some items I want to see: the customer numbers, the name, the city, the state, the country, and the sales amount by month. So I'll just kind of spend a quick second here to format. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we'll get it kind of looking how we want. And we'll give ourselves just a tad bit more room. So let's say that's our template. Maybe we drop a company logo, whatever else. Pretty much everything else we do, aside from sprinkling in Excel functionality, will be driven here through the Cosmos add-in. And in addition to all that training and support resources I showed you, you also have an AI-powered bot by Microsoft here to be able to say, hey, I'm stuck. How do I add filters? And this is all trained against our content. And so it will actually give you step-by-step walkthroughs or links to articles and videos. So a really nice way to learn as you go. Now, the nice thing about Cosmos, it's data agnostic. So whether you're building financials or operational reports, everything gets built using some combination of these 7 steps, which are covered in detail during our training. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to add some report options or filters, which are going to be those toggles I can change before I run the report. So I can look at different dates or customers or dimensions or whatever it is. And notice when I go into my data in Cosmos, it's clean, it's organized. You could look at this and figure out where the stuff you need for a report actually lives. I'm not seeing 1,700 BC tables and 53,000 fields because I don't need even a fraction of those. So we're seeing, a really nice clean structure. And beyond that, the structure in Cosmos is really powerful because I'm going to use this sales table for a lot of this report. But this single table in your reporting interface is actually 8 Business Central tables that have been brought together. And that's what makes it so easy for business users. They don't have to join 6 different tables to build a report. That's already done in the data models. So what I'm going to do is add a filter for year. So I'll look up year, I'll grab it, and I'll just throw in some sort of default value. We'll be able to toggle this later, and we'll click Save. That's it. If you want to rinse and repeat, add more filter options, you would do exactly what I just showed. You want one for salesperson, location, item, whatever. Step 2 is optional, but it's used a lot, so I like to show it. And that's the ability to leverage sheets, so different reports across sheets. So maybe I want to have, maybe it's year end, and I want to do one-on-ones with the sales team. I'll come into my sales table here, and I'll tell Cosmos to give me a separate report that looks exactly like this for each salesperson, and we'll click Save. That's it. But one of the things I can do there is I can also do child sheets. So a great use case here is maybe you want to have an all company, all sales report. Then you want a child sheet for each salesperson. And below each salesperson, you want a child sheet for each item category or whatever it is. That's what the child sheets allow you to do, is have different hierarchies of reports across the different sheet lists. So it's really powerful stuff. Or maybe you want a all company consolidated income statement, then a sheet for each company, and then below each company, a sheet for each department. That's the kind of stuff you can do there. Now, the next thing we want to do is list out data in our report. So I want data to go down like this, and I want my monthly sales to move out in columns. So I'm going to start by addressing the first part here. I want to list out all of this information in rows. So we'll grab that shape, and I'll start by listing out a customer number. So I could use any customer type, sell to, ship to, bill to. I'll just pick bill to and click save. So that's going to give me all the bill to customers that are on this sheet, which means they apply to a certain salesperson that is listed out on that sheet. So that's step one. Step two, I want my months going out in columns so I can see my sales by month. So I'll grab the months in the year and I'll just click save. So now we're going to have data moving down and data moving out, and that will form our report. Now I need to add in the fields, and the beauty of a relational database like we have with Cosmos is that it's guiding you. It's not showing you GL tables, because that doesn't have anything to do with your sales report you're trying to build. It is showing you customer information and dimensions and companies and items and all that good stuff. But even though you have never used Cosmos, the next thing we want is the name of the bill to customer. So I'm going to open up bill to customer and grab the customer name and the city, the state they're located in, the country name. And finally, I want to sum up my sales by month. So I'll come over here, go to sales transactions, and I'll tell Cosmos to sum up my sales. Now, one of the things that's really powerful if you've used reporting tools, see how all my filtering is linking up? It's going to look at the salesperson on this sheet dynamically. It's going to look at the bill to customer to the left. It's going to look at the month in the column and the year we run the report for as a report option. So we'll click save. I can put a total sales here. I can use Excel for a quick sum. And I'll just format things a little bit. So we'll get this looking how we want. And then at this point, what I would do in a real life application is preview my report. But I know my report's good, so I'm going to close out of here. And I can check this into production now. Now we can obviously put an image, a screenshot, company logo, whatever you want. I'm just going to check mine in blank so there's no smoke and mirrors. And we'll see in just a second we have a blank monthly sales by salesperson. I'll run that report. There's that year filter I put in, but I can run this for any year I want, multiple years. I'll go ahead and run it. And what you'll see, which is pretty cool, is it's not creating one report. I said, give me a separate report for each salesperson. So it actually built out in that few seconds 7 different reports across the sheets. So you can see each salesperson has their own report with their customers for the year, the amount of sales by month. You could easily have added commission calculations, things like that. But that's how you go about building reports in Cosmos. And now anytime I need to run this, I can just hit it, refresh from the portal and toggle my dates. So that's the Excel reporting side of the product. The next thing I want to talk about is the Power BI component, the dashboards and the analytics. So what you're looking at here is Power BI Desktop. And the simple way to describe Power BI is that it's a data visualization tool. You can see that right here in Microsoft's own words. The problem with Power BI, if you haven't used it, is that you can't just hook it up to BC and run with it. Your data needs to be formatted, and specifically, it needs to be relational. It needs to be different tables and fields, but that are all joined and linked on different items. And that requires typically coding, SQL, DAX, different coding languages. Most business users aren't going to figure that out, and nor should they have to. And so you can probably guess where I'm going with this. But one of the things we developed at the request of the market was a connector between Cosmos and Power BI. So I've actually hooked this up to some of that exact same data you just saw in Excel. So that's that sales transactions table I used in Excel. And now I skip the hard part. I don't have to modify APIs and write code. I can just come in here and drag in the stuff I want to see on my dashboard. So maybe I want to see it by, item description or item category. And maybe I want to see where our largest customers are, based on my filters. So I can drag in the sales by the customer state and I can move that out. And so this gives you, true interactive analytics without the hard part of Power BI. If you take that a step further, you can add a title, some slicers, kind of organize your dashboard a bit better, change color themes, things like that. Now, when you're done with Power BI, the next step is always to publish it up to powerbi.com. And that's where users would go to access that information. But the problem there is that Power BI is not where you're going to do your financials. That's not what this tool's designed for. And so now you've got different endpoints that you have to educate users on where to go depending on what they need. If you need dashboards, go log into powerbi.com. If you need Excel reports, they're on this server on our network drive, whatever it is, right? And so what people asked for is to bring these together. So here's my Cosmos portal. Now on the left, there's a Power BI section. And when I click on here, what it actually just did is it passed through my Microsoft credentials. It authenticated on my behalf, and it returned the dashboards and reports that are Power BI based into Cosmos. So I haven't signed in today, so it's going to ask me to do a one-click sign in. But once I've signed in for the day, what I'll show you is you can open these up and your URL is not going to change. You're not being redirected. This is Power BI inside of Cosmos. So this gives you the best of both worlds. You've got your Excel-based reports, your dashboards and analytics, but what can't be understated is that they're pulling from a consistent data set that's clean, ready to use. If you drag in sales by salesperson into Power BI and you drop in sales by salesperson into Excel, they're going to be the same number because it's the same exact data set. So it eliminates the user error as well. So Excel-based reports, Power BI dashboards. The last piece here is the data management side of the product. How does this all work? And so what you'll see here at the top, I've hooked this up to a real BC tenant. We have an extension on AppSource that gets bolted up as part of your 20-minute onboarding. I should mention that everything that I'm showing today, everything in Cosmos, you're up and running in 20 minutes. And there's basically no IT footprint. But once you're hooked up here, you can pick your companies that you want to report out of. We add in a very robust date schema, so you can filter or analyze your information by lots of different dates that you don't typically have available in an ERP. And then down here at the bottom, this is our out-of-the-box data models. So the nice thing here is it's scalable. If you don't use inventory for your business, then we don't import those tables. So this is our base template for Business Central Cloud. Now, what that all forms is that nice clean data model you saw me using in Excel and you saw me using a portion of in Power BI. But again, just like anything in Cosmos, it's flexible. So we give you as much as we can out of the box. But here in the staging section, these are all the tables and fields in Business Central. And so if we hook this up for you, not only will this show base BC tables and fields, but it will show all your custom tables and fields, your extensions, anything you've added into Business Central. And so it's very easy to come in here and just add additional tables and map those together. Or maybe you want to add additional fields. Well, I could say, hey, for this customer, they need the customer address. So I'm going to check that box. I'll come in my data model and I'll add a new field. You can caption it any way you want. I'll just call it customer address. And over here on the right, I'll map an address. I can publish out those changes, and that will now be available when I use my Excel add-in or Microsoft Power BI. So that's how you can take any data you want from Business Central and bring it in. But just to put an exclamation point on this, these are the tables we pull from out of the box because these are the tables people actually need. Most of these tables, the vast majority, you will never build a report out of. But with a lot of reporting tools, your users have to sift through this. You're not going to build reports out of your XML buffer table, right? It's not important. So what is important is giving business users a very clean data model that they can use to build reports off of. And if I click on any of these tables, I mentioned earlier, we use this sales transactions table. You'll see that we're actually consolidating the value entry table, the return receipt line, sales credit memo line. So all 8 of these tables form this, nice, easy to work with sales model here. So that's really the idea. We've talked about the user side of the product. We talked about reporting, security, scheduling, archiving, drill down. We talked about the two-way Power BI integration with clean data into Power BI reports and dashboards in your Cosmos portal. And we talked about the data management section to make this so user-friendly. But that's what I had to cover today. We're right at the top of the, half hour here. So Robbie, did we have any questions come in throughout?
Yes, so we had one question come in over the chat, and I'd like to just take this moment to tell everyone, if you want, raise your hand, we will unmute you, and you can ask questions and have Anthony answer those. The question that got asked was, is output is always to Excel? Question mark.
Yeah, so it depends, right? So I'm guessing that came in before we got to the Power BI piece, but the output for your standard reports is going to be Excel. And then you also have an optional feature with the Power BI integration here to be able to, build stuff in Power BI as well. So if you want that visual front end, you have that at your disposal as well.
Fantastic. It looks like Richard Bird, has a question.
Sure. You want to unmute
Richard,
it?
if you want to unmute yourself, I've done that on my side.
Thank you. Hey, I noticed there's a data model involved. Does the data in the data model that gets updated periodically from the transaction tables in BC?
Yeah, great question. So, yep, the data refreshes by default nightly, Richard. But the beauty of what we designed here is that we also know how users leverage this stuff. And so, month end comes, you post a batch of transactions, you need to see those in your reports. There's a button here to run your pipeline, and that will trigger an incremental load. It typically takes about 2 or 3 minutes on average. And then you've got your latest data and you can hit your reports and they'll run in, seconds. So that's how we address that piece. So if you've got stuff posting, at month end, you can just trigger a run pipeline here. And in addition to that, we'll be releasing in the near future some ways to schedule more frequent refreshes of your data.
Yeah, I was thinking about some of the ad hoc reporting we currently do, but yeah, that should take care of it.
Yeah, to be honest, everything we build, Richard, is based on customer feedback and just being candid with people knowing that button's there to just go incrementally load anything that's new or changed. Folks are like, that's exactly what I need. I just need to be able to trigger it to grab the latest data.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
We have sorry about that, Anthony.
Oh,
we have a question from Christine Webb. Does Cosmos have any functionality to deal with A, forecasting and budgeting, and B, multi-entity consolidation, including consolidation adjustments?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Christine, I'll answer that a little bit backwards, I guess, order-wise. So Cosmos does work with multi-entity. If you're using just BC for that, or if you have like binary streams, mem, any of that stuff, you have the ability to leverage that in Cosmos. So that kind of addresses that piece. We have a lot of customers with multi-entity or using literally binary streams, mem. And then it isn't a CPM tool, to be clear. I mean, this is the best in breed reporting and analytics tool. So it works with budgets, forecasts. It can read that information. You could, in theory, use Excel and Cosmos to, do some of that forecasting or budgeting, but it's not a budgeting workflow tool, if that makes sense. So its job is not to like manage the budgeting and forecasting process. It's more of a pure best in breed reporting and analytics platform.
We have one more question from Francisco. Staging, DW, cubes, DBs are all provided as a service by Cosmos. Is any configuration required by the customer besides the add-in from AppSource?
Yeah, so a couple things there, Francisco, and if I'm not answering this in the way you're intending, feel free to pop off mute, or Robbie, you can unmute him or whatever. So yes, out of the box on day one, you're going to have this entire data model. And again, this is going to be 95% of what you need. And then beyond that, you can, work with your partner, work with us, or just take the training and you can bring in any custom, data inputs you want, custom tables and fields, different fields as you saw within the tables. For context, I mean, if you needed a half dozen tables added and a couple dozen fields, that's like 30 minutes, 20 minutes worth of work. So it's absolutely something, you can learn to do, we can help with. And then as far as configuration goes, I mean, as part of that onboarding, the extension gets bolted up, that reads your Business Central data. We select the companies, we set up your users, roles, permissions, and import the pre-built data models, and then you're off and running. So there's really no IT footprint or a whole bunch of configuration required by any means. It's meant to be a true cloud solution that stands up quickly and that doesn't have a whole lot of, again, IT involvement or legwork to get things moving. Francisco, did that answer your question? Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah, so the storage, the database, and everything is provided by Cosmos, right? The engines themselves.
Correct. Yep. There's no variable, consumption costs. Everything is baked in, and is, if you think about it, when you have like this data backend, a data warehouse or reporting database backend, the benefits would take me another 10 minutes to list off. So it's really important that we built that architecture, especially with Business Central, Microsoft pushing out data throttling, like limiting how much data you can pull out at a time. That's made a lot of legacy tools very slow. And so what happens as part of the onboarding, it spins up a dedicated Azure SQL instance. That's where your reporting database, lives, or what it is. So yeah, all that is baked in, included, and we manage all that.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions from the team today?
So if those are all the questions for today, I'd like to thank you all for attending our webinar. I'd also like to thank Anthony for an amazing presentation. That was extremely insightful, and I absolutely loved it. I hope you all have a great day, and we hope to see you again at one of our upcoming webinars.
Awesome. Thanks, Robbie, for organizing, and thank you to the Sabre team. And then obviously, thank you everyone for the time. Have a great rest of your day.